Good afternoon, everyone. It is always difficult to host pre-lunch session, but let's try to keep everyone awake. And so I will start with a rapid fire round. Which are the roles and skills which you find most difficult to hire for? Any order?
I'll take that. So I think anyone in the industry who's building fast, instant digital lending capability struggles to find data scientists who can apply the data science academia that they've learned to the challenge of underwriting in a market as complex as India. That's where we definitely have the toughest job.
Okay. Anyone else?
Straight answer, machine learning folks, very, very difficult to find. And sales people, especially in some of the sectoral plays, very, very difficult. The talent, there is no white collar talent pool available in that country.
Tanuj?
Yeah, I think in fintech is at a very interesting place, right? Which is it's a combination of finance and combination of user experience. When it comes to finance, it's all about trust, compliance, ensuring your transactions runs perfect. When it comes to consumers, it's all about how smooth is the experience, how good is the UX. To find people at the intersection of finance and consumer is a really difficult piece.
Okay, and Tanuj?
Sorry, Prashanth.
Sorry, yeah.
So I think for all of us, I think speed is key, right? We're running fintech startups. We're all in a very competitive market. So I think speed is key, and I think speed and scale is our competitive advantage, if you may. So all of us, I think, well, I'll agree that machine learning, data science, deep learning, and all those kind of very core skills are hard. The other one is I think there's a whole world of underskilled kind of folks that kind of we tend to see. So what I mean by that is like folks that are traditionally marketers but don't know analytics, or folks that are traditionally designers but don't know analytics, folks that are traditionally product managers but are not in analytics. And the reason I think one has to cross that barrier and have both is because coming back to speed, right? A product manager who's able to fetch their own data, make their own data cuts, and understand what's happening in the business is far more effective than a traditional product manager who just has good instincts. Similarly with design, or similarly with policy, right? So lending policy, people who are creating policy, we change our policy almost every few weeks. So if you don't have the analytic skills to go with the traditional policy underwriting skills, then you're underskilled. So I think we face just as much of an underskilled problem as we face a unskilled problem.
Great. So we have, if I were to summarize, we have skill requirements mainly in data science and let's say cross-functional areas. But I will start again with Prashanth now, because the question which I have is that, look, today you have educated and uneducated, but there is another section emerging out of educated also. You have educated irrelevant, because the education which people are getting today may or may not be relevant for them to get jobs which are jobs of the future, right? Yeah. So what is that you think in terms of the skill reconciliation requirement which industry will be able to provide?
Yeah, so I think the way I'd answer that is, so the half-life of our formal education is getting very, very short, right? Like, so I think when I graduated, and I won't tell you exactly when, but even then I could at least be relevant in the industry for at least 10 years with some core skills. I learned computer science, I learned bioinformatics, and I think that skill carried for 10 years. Now I think as soon as you come out of college, you're irrelevant, because the rate of change in many industries is so fast that you have to almost augment your learning, not just in college, but even in high school. So I think the half-life is, I think, what's driving a lot of this underskill related concern.
Great. Amrish, what is your thought on that?
So, I think in especially fintech and in a country like India, I think we have lots of issues to solve for, right? One is we've got to go after that individual who's not digitally savvy, wants to get products in a very simplified format, but at the same time you have the young engineers leading the gig economy life, which want to have a very seamless experience out there. When you build a product, your product really should be ready for going across the entire spectrum. And how do you hire for and how do you train for, how do you skill up an individual for the entire spectrum, I think is a real issue to solve for. You will always find the really good guys who are skilled enough to build a operationally sound organization which has lots of papers out there, which goes through the old school way of doing banking and financial services. But at the same time, you need to solve for somebody who wants to receive the most digital experience when it comes to fintech. And in a country like India, we have a consumer base which is covering both the ends. How do you train somebody to think all the compliances of the industry, but in a digital format? I think that's the challenge that we'll have to work towards.
Lizzie, would you like to add?
Yeah, I think we're a bit controversial actually in this way. We don't depend on people coming perfectly polished and having great depth of industry knowledge. In fact, sometimes we think that can be a hindrance. So we would much rather take young, fresh, but extremely smart and inquisitive graduates and train them up. And that model has worked really, really well, especially in data science. Now is happening in engineering and definitely in product. We've found that product managers who come from a traditional finance background carry a lot of baggage. There's a lot of, well, it has to be done like this. And if we're trying to create completely disruptive products that change the industry, we need people that don't have that conditioning. So we're happy to take that risk. But the other side of that is you need patience because it takes time. And one of the challenges, I think, as Prashanth alluded to, is everybody's running so fast today to create such valuable companies. And therefore, people want their careers to go on that kind of trajectory as well. And so they expect within 12 months they're going to have major impact on the business. And that's just not possible. So we also have to manage that in the long run, they will add significant value to the industry, but they have to be prepared to be trained up for a few years.
And Tanuj, any thoughts on that?
So in sync with what each one of them said, but probably I'll add another segment to that. So that is irrelevant or fast getting obsolete workforce which is currently existing in the country. India has what, 2 to 3 million plus IFAs, real estate agents, mortgage agents, insurance agents, and it's a massive challenge getting them connected to the digital world, thinking what the consumer wants. They're still working in a very traditional hold-based economy way. Then today, like apart from the campus, and we'll talk about campus as we go along, fresh graduates, that is a talent pool which probably needs to be addressed very, very relevantly, very, very sufficiently.
Great. So I think the outcome which we have in terms of the discussion here is we need to have a continuous learning. You can't stop saying that, okay, I have learned enough, because the moment you realize that, okay, you have finished each and everything, you realize that something new is there, right? So the horizons will keep on increasing, and then you need to prepare yourself for that. It allows me to ask you one more question, which is, I'll start with Amrish. So when you look at opportunities and bubbles in the fintech industry itself today, right? So people always try to chase those bubbles and opportunities. What do you suggest for young entrepreneurs or even the students that you should think about whether you should go only and chase bubbles, or it is better to think and reconcile your skill and then go for something which you are passionate about?
So, I'm just going to try and make this question a little bit relevant to all the people who are sitting out here. There are no students out here. I would love to address the students in a completely different way to this question. But quite a few of the founders out here, and I want to respond to this addressing the founders and people in senior management in these fintech organizations. You got to remember 3-4 things when it comes to a new employee when he joins you. So when a new employee joins you in a fintech, and you are the one who's in this bubble organization, you need to remember that there's seldom somebody joins a startup because they want to work for the company. Most of the times people join the startup because they want to work for the founder. It's very important that the founder takes responsibility for every new individual coming into their organization, however big the organization might be, so that the career of that individual goes to the right level and right outcome. I think that's a pressure which every founder should feel at every point. That's one. Second, when an individual joins a startup, he invariably has a discussion with the family, where the family is turning around and saying, maybe I'm not sure what you're doing is right or not. So there's constantly push to this individual that, are you really doing well with this company? I think in a startup, the founder's responsibility is also to look at this young individual and create an environment which is a really happy environment for that individual to stay there. Once you have an individual who's happy, he's going to take all the initiative to skill himself up and take himself to another level. The third piece is, look, if you're in a bubble, the best thing that you can do is spread your wealth. So absolutely be the first ones to make use of the bubble to create fantastic ESOP plans for your employees, because when you get your exit, everybody around you should be happier. So make use of the bubble to build careers, make people happy, and get people the outcomes where they could potentially become significantly rich.
Sure, Lizzie, would you like to add on something on that?
I mean, we've definitely seen a bit of CV inflation in the last 2 years, where everybody puts AI on their CV now, and then we ask them to do like some simple online tests, or you can catch it very, very quickly. Typically, what being an AI specialist means today is they've read a bunch of articles, or they've maybe done a Udacity course or something like that. There's a huge difference between having a passion for AI and having practical life experience of some of the most boring things, actually. I mean, doing AI in a fintech startup in India is a lot of data entry, for example, especially as a junior person. It's a really boring, plowing through unstructured data, trying to organize it. Very few people are actually, building neural networks. That's going to be 1 or 2 people at the very top of the organization. So we're definitely seeing that, and it makes life hard for recruitment because you have to come up with very creative ways of working out what's reality versus fact and fiction.
Prashanth.
So, 2 comments. The first one, so we've been building PaySense for 4 years. There have been a lot of opportunities that have come and gone. The fundamental issue with chasing opportunities is that you're chasing. If you didn't see it coming and get ready for it, you're already behind, right? So I think that's one of the first things I say to at least peers who are looking to go chase an opportunity. I'm saying, well, it's already too late. So if you are looking to start a neobank today, really rethink it, because there's already like 7 people who thought about it last year, and maybe another 10 people the year prior. And so unless you have something fundamentally different, don't chase it. Just think about what the next thing is, right? That's one. The second thing is, when I talk to new graduates, new employees, the first thing I ask them is, when we're having our first conversation, I ask them, like, what is the conversation you and I are going to be having around this table 3 years from now? And that is actually quite insightful, and that tells you a lot about what this person is thinking and how this person's thinking. Often they say, oh, I'm here for the learning. And the first thing I like to debunk for them is startups are phenomenal learning environments, but there are no lecturers. I think that's the mindset that I think most Indian graduates need to change, because they're used to showing up at school or college and being taught. By osmosis, they pick up a lot of stuff. They regurgitate, they write exams, and they think they've learned. But startups are not like that. You only learn to the extent that you put yourself out there in the fire, and then if you're not willing to do that, if you're not that athlete, and if you thought you're going to play a particular sport, but you didn't come with a full athlete mindset, then you're not really going to succeed. And regardless of what opportunity is chasing or pursuing, you're not going to get that.
Sure, Tanuj.
A differentiated view, I think, brings down to the age-old question on why founders start the startup, like why people start. I was on the other side of the table before I started mine, and we keep on meeting a lot of founders for inorganic opportunities. My sense, and I don't know if people agree to that or not, 80% people start for the wrong reasons. If part of these bubbles are waves driven by investment climate, people think about exits on day 1. I'm not talking from the investment funds perspective, but from the founder's perspective. You shouldn't be thinking about exit for the next 30 years. I don't believe in failed entrepreneurs. I don't believe in learning lessons by failing in startups. I don't believe in plan Bs and the plan Cs. You start, it should be a matter of life and death for you. Can you run that to your bed, to your sleep, to your shower every morning, every night? Can you be passionate enough to live and die for that? That's when you start. Simple answers. And invariably, you will see 90% of the startups which succeed are the people, are the founders who have been through that journey. And 90% of the startups which failed because they started for the wrong reason.
Sure, so nice to see differentiated view. Anyone would like to comment on that, or shall we proceed?
I absolutely disagree. I think you should start for whatever reason you're passionate about. It could be capital, it could be wealth, but you don't have to die with your startup. That's why the venture community takes a bet, right? They're looking for returns. It's an investment, It is not a matter of life and death. I think you should absolutely start a company because you're passionate about changing something, but you don't have to die with it. The ecosystem changes, the market changes, the environment changes. Let the startup die. You don't have to die with it.
Sure. So I will add something to that. So I also wear VC hat, and then I have seen. So what Lizzie said, I have seen both sides, right? On CV also you see AI/ML everywhere, and on the startup also you see AI/ML everywhere. Whatever product they are saying, there will be some AI/ML included there, and even blockchain somehow. So we have seen that also. And I agree with you guys that on the student side or entrepreneur side, you need to look at attitude and aptitude to make sure that, look, sometimes you don't know everything, but if you have attitude and aptitude of learning things, you can catch up very quickly, right? And that's what people require today. With this, I will slightly change the topic in terms of ecosystem players, because today what happens, you are part of the ecosystem. Government is there, regulators are there, and you have, on the corporate side, you have corporates who are looking at some innovations, and banks are there who are also then part of this ecosystem, and startups, and then students, right? So if you look at this entire ecosystem, there are so many touch points where you need to evolve and further improve. So I will start with Amrish again. What do you think in terms of the ecosystem play? Where do we need to improve? What are the challenges? Where are we finding friction today?
No, which one do you want me to zoom into?
So I will say in fintech specifically today, in the ecosystem, what do you find is maybe rotten, it is not good, it is something which we can improve together, alone, whatever?
You know, this is going to sound very cliche, right? But I actually don't look at things that way. I generally look at things in a way which is, what can I do and what can I solve for? So I actually don't get involved into any conversations related to, what can RBI do, or what can government do, or what should have happened if second factor would have been taken away, or, how do you look at data policies and all of that? Because I personally think about it that you should really worry about what is in your control. And if you run with that mindset, you are constantly working towards solving a problem, and that's a problem which is a real world problem. I might actually go the other way and say that we in India are living in one of the best times and the best places when it comes to fintech. In any other country, you would actually have to pay for a movie star to come in and promote your industry. The Prime Minister of India talks about NPCI and fintech and UPI. The Prime Minister is a supporter. Second, anywhere in the world, if you want to do a credit business, you want to do a faster payments business, you first have to build the infrastructure and then build your app on top of it. So building the infrastructure itself is 75% of the job. In India today, we have the infrastructure laid out, right? You have the stacks available, you have UPI available, all which you're doing as a fintech founder is really building on top of that. So, I'm in that strong camp which says that we are blessed. The opportunity which is in front of us in fintech is unbelievable.
Great, Lizzie.
Totally agree, of course. Amrish is right. It's why did we move to India to start the business we started, right? Because we see potentially the biggest opportunity in the world for fintech, and it's going to happen in the fastest pace because we have a consumer that's ready, we have some of the most tech-adopting consumers on the planet, and we have a government and infrastructure that literally the world is envious of right now. And so actually I think the main thing we can do as an ecosystem is stop dwelling on, KYC changed last week. That's our job, to react to changes in regulation. That's why we exist. We should be thriving when regulation changes because we can run faster, build quicker than the incumbents. So I think a lot more collaboration as an industry in basically being more optimistic and positive about the benefits that we have, and then sharing best practice and sharing ideas. I do find, versus where we operated in Europe, it's much harder to get companies to work together in India. There seems to be a fear or a sort of distrust, like maybe we're competition. And maybe because we believe the market is so vast and so huge and there's opportunity for literally thousands of billion-dollar companies to be built in this space, we don't have that mistrust. We think that we'll all be stronger if we work together. So actually, Prashanth and I have set up initiatives where we get our risk team to share information, share learnings about fraud, for example. Why would we not do that? That kind of collaboration is only going to be beneficial to everybody. But I would have a plea to other fintech players in the industry to join those initiatives. It's really sad that we don't work harder together.
Prashanth?
Okay, so I'll bring it back to the topic at hand. So in some ways we're talking about the workforce, right? So I think as a founder, and I think all of us are in the same camp here, we take responsibility to skill our employees, right? So one of the key reasons people join PaySense is because they're entrepreneurs at heart. They just want to know how it's done. This is their net practice, right? In some ways. So my job and my leadership team's job is to make sure that they learn everything they need to learn firsthand, so that when they leave, we don't fear that they leave. We're very happy that they will, but they are skilled to go start their own, right? Like I think Lizzie mentioned, there's room for thousands of us to coexist. And so if we are the academy, if we are the institution that creates its, like I'm sure Lizzie wants a Zest mafia and I want a PaySense mafia, that should exist, and people who leave each of our companies should go build massive billion-dollar enterprises. So I'm not looking at the RBI or the institutions of education in the country. They've done their part. I think it's our part to kind of get the employees to kind of step out in a meaningful way and succeed.
Tanuj?
So I think apart from the regulatory answers like regulation and workforce, I believe it has to be very unique in terms of opportunities or challenges India offers. There was a session before ours, they were talking about in fintech, the portability of non-product platforms may not be easily replicable because the challenges every country offers, like a developed world would offer a very, very different challenges for potential fintech platforms to come and build vis-a-vis an emerging market like India, vis-a-vis a semi-emerging economy like Latin America, Africa, or potential parts of Southeast Asia. So it has to be unique based on the proposition the country offers, challenges the country offers, and that's how the thought process should go.
Sure, so I will ask another question to you. I will start with you. Saying that, okay, so Prashanth brought an amazing point saying that you have to identify the talent, also identify what is that they are for, right, within the company, and then nurture that talent. Make sure that they are also entrepreneurs. Rather than creating one more employee, you are trying to create one more employer for the future. So now when you look at this problem that way, what is that you feel? How to approach that, and what is the role of company in making employers of the future rather than employees of the future?
So two parts to that answer. So I'll tell you what we are trying to do. Working partly, yes. One is train the trainer. So we have large sales people on the ground. We told ourselves that the days are gone where you will put a one corporate trainer in the room and try and change the psychological behavior, physical behavior of thousands and thousands of your sales staff. So we are effectively training the entire hierarchies to train themselves, their entire hierarchies under them. But the second and the more important thing what we are trying to do is partner with campuses, partner with universities, go there, try and encapsulate roughly 2 to 3 month programs or could be 7-day workshops before we go for campus hirings. We are telling them that we potentially will hire 70-80% of your graduates, but as long as they have to go through what we want them to be trained on for 2 to 3 months before they come to us.
Great, Prashanth, I think.
So we just teach everyone one thing. It's okay to fail. It's just not okay to not try, right? As cliche and as simple as that sounds, it is impossible a task. It's a Herculean task to take that on and kind of instill it in people. It's okay to fail, right? As long as they learn that by trying, failing, and seeing that it's okay, it's not the end of the world, then they start taking those chances. And once they start taking chances, they become entrepreneurs within the entity and at some point beyond. So we just try to, that's part of our culture. So then people who go through that culture just have that learning as a part of it, which I think is going to make its way through.
Lizzie?
Yeah, quite similar actually. We sometimes say to our team, look, we can't guarantee you this is going to be the success we dream it is. This is a high-risk game we're all playing. But what we can guarantee is you're going to have the most amazing life experience. You're going to condense potentially years of learning from a more corporate job into a few years here. You're going to do things you would never get the opportunity to do, and you're going to see some of the most extreme highs and lows of any company's journey. And I think if you have that transparency with your team, that they're on the same journey with you, and that life experience is completely priceless, then they trust you. And just to add to that, most founders meet their co-founders in their workplace, right? So there's not really a better kind of petri dish for developing relationships and co-founder partnerships than a startup that's going through fast growth. So I also always encourage our team to think about that when they create their Zest Mafia. Who are they going to partner up with across the team?
So, I usually talk about two specific things, right? First one, whenever there is a new employee joining us, I make it a point to reiterate to the person that the move from cash to digital is never going to go back. Nobody is ever going to go back to cash. This journey from cash to digital is going to last at least for the next 20, 25, 30 years all across the world. So the growth opportunity, the career opportunities, the startup opportunities in fintech and in payments is unlimited. I actually encourage everybody who joins my company that spend time in understanding the domain very well. So you meet a lot of people who come in as salespeople, leave as salespeople. What you want is somebody who comes in and says that I'm a salesperson. When he leaves, he says that I'm a salesperson in payments, or I'm a salesperson in fintech. I think it's very important for me. Again, even when it comes to product, there are a lot of people who come in and say, I'm a product manager, I can do this product, I can work for a Bombay shirt company as a product manager later. And I just don't find that very comfortable in my head. What I do spend a lot of time with them, understand the domain, because if you understand the domain and if you understand why RuPay is a debit only yet and not gone to credit, and why it will go only after next 18 months to credit, and there's a full science to it, why RuPay will go only after 18 months to become a credit product. You've got to understand the backstory, and that's very important. That's the only way you're going to create something big. So that's one thing I spend a lot of time on. The second thing which is very important is what's the culture that you build within the organization, and how do you communicate to everybody saying, when you go and do your startup, what should you really focus on in building your culture? And generally, I think rule number 1 and rule number 10 in that is always that we are all equals. We are part of a team. We all have to enjoy ourselves when we are working as a group. If there are 10% of the team members who can understand that and use that in their startup, I just think that we would have achieved a lot in that journey.
Great. So I appreciate on that fact that today we are looking at opportunities also where you need to chase the right opportunity at the right time. And we need to appreciate that there is a reason behind the companies moving at whatever their core strength is, right? So you need to also appreciate that. Great. So now the last question and any concluding remarks you have. So I will start with you now again. The question which I have is that today, if industry and academia has to partner together, in which areas you think it should partner so that it can add highest value, right, in the entire value chain?
Considering I never went to IIT, I'm not that intelligent. So the way I would put up is, about a year and a half back, the IIT Mumbai, Mumbai University Chancellor, the Vice Chancellor, I had a chance to meet up with him, and what he was saying is he wanted to start up a fintech course in Mumbai University, right? As a person who's from the fintech space, I found that to be a really, really interesting opportunity, and what we could do in terms of imparting our knowledge, actually funding some of these programs which runs in these universities, that could go to a great extent. And lastly, once there are students which come out of this, how can we find them employment, and how can we find them opportunities where they can hone up their skills out there? So it was in this forum where, somebody asked me that question. I said, yes, I would love to partner with it. And I followed up 3 times with the university, and I actually did not get a response back from that university, right, Mumbai University. I think there is not enough which is happening, while it is very, very simple how to solve for it. Look, guys, let's be honest with this, right? We are burning 50 crores, 100 crores in our businesses. If we think we can invest 50 lakhs in building a world-class fintech, group in a university, one single university, I think we would have achieved a lot out of it. So from a business standpoint, from a startup point of view, I think, there's a lot which we are ready to offer out there. but for some reason that is not working very well. I think there's an initiative required to bring academia and businesses together to try and form something which is really concrete.
Great, Lizzie.
Yeah, I'm actually going to talk about something we haven't touched on today, but has become increasingly important in this new economy, which is soft skills, and specifically around presentation, communication, and influence. Influence is a word we use a lot in our company because we think the best product managers, the best engineers, the best business leaders can influence teams across the organization to get things done. And I'm going to say, again, a slightly controversial point, but India churns out clearly the cleverest, brightest, best students in the world, but they tend to have deficient training in communication and influence skills. And I can say, by the way, UK is exactly the same, because I think that education systems are very similar. But the US do this brilliantly. And I know this because we've hired a bunch of US graduates in the last couple of years, and they come in, hit the ground running, fantastic communication skills. They may not have more competence, but they get their message across so well. And I really do plead to the educational institutes in this country to really focus on that, because I'm finding these kids can just rise up quicker because they have that power of communication.
Great, Prashanth.
Yeah, so I think I take a very different stance on education. I think after 4 years of undergrad, 2 years of grad school, I always look back and say, what did I do for the last 6 years? And like, how has that contributed to me being, at a Microsoft or a startup or any of the other apprenticeships I've held? I think, education's changing very quickly as well. I think the Stanfords of the future, the Yales of the future, the IITs of the future are going to look fundamentally different and a lot more integrated into the industry. At least I hope so. But yeah, I do, generally I agree. Like, I think the soft skills, the empathy, the customer empathy, ability to design think, those are some of the things that are lacking. I think we spend a lot more time on the theoretical aspects of education, but I think what really matters is when a person comes into the job force is empathy. Things like empathy are very hard to teach, and I hope that's emphasized a little bit more going forward.
Tanuj.
Prashant took words out of my mouth. I was about to say that bridge between industry and theoretical knowledge. Do we actually need 2 years to learn what we learn in an MBA? Do we actually need 4 years to learn what we learn in an engineering school? That industry association, affiliation, work experience, your practical experience is a must. More than half of the time in your courses should be spent on ground, on floors, learning those skill sets, life skill sets which help you. Partly, obviously, that's been done in US and UK, not in India. Like, you can't get into a Wharton or a Stanford directly out of an engineering college. You can't. But like half of the graduates in Indian B schools that's practically an extension of college. You don't learn there. So a lot of this has to be changed, and a lot of this debate is all about like what kind of education we are imparting and whether that educational structure right. If I take a step further, not just engineering and MBAs, that educational structure right from the standard one needs to change effectively there.
So we run this executive program of FinTech, and it is meant for people who have some work experience. So I will share a quick bit in terms of what we have experienced, right? So we have identified saying that, look, if we have techno-strategy program, today as you all agree that we require cross-section of multiple talents, right? It is not that only one talent is required. And I would be more than happy to partner with you guys. Open to audience, if you have any questions, last 2 minutes. Yeah. Can someone pass on mic to him?
Hi, I have a question to the panel. What are 2 skills, which you would be looking at when you are hiring somebody, maybe from a MBA graduate school right now?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's quite simple, actually. One is a soft skill that Lizzie mentioned, which is empathy. Do you have customer empathy? Are you able to communicate that, or in some way, right? The second one is learning mindset, right? Where our companies are growing at 30, 40% month on month, right? Not year on year, month on month. Are you going to be able to keep up? Like, you may come in and say, yes, I have this skill today, and you're relevant today. Will you be relevant 3 months from now? Because by that time, the company's gone 30%, 30%, 30%, right? The compounding effect of that is very, very stressful for some people. So So that learning mindset, if you have that, the mind is like an infinite sponge. If you can keep learning, then you can keep remaining relevant. So I always look for, when I say athlete or that learning mindset, that's what I mean. So learning mindset is extremely important, and then customer empathy is, it's hard to teach, so you might as well bring it in, right?
Great.
So I'm just going to add into that one, right? So I actually have a slightly different take on this, right? So when it comes to fintech, it goes back to my first answer. I'm still a big believer that you need to have the domain expertise in terms of what happens in the financial services space, what is the backstory in terms of why a card is actually being used wherever it's being used. So for me, domain knowledge is very important. And then add on to it is, what is your understanding in terms of consumer and consumer behavior? When you're looking for an individual, you want to find that intersection between somebody who has a good understanding of consumer insights, but then also has domain expertise along with it.
So we have time for one last question. Okay, so we'll try to accommodate. Yeah. Go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Shubham, and so since I've done the fintech course from SP Jain and Vikram sir was the mentor for me, so I have a good journey, and now I'm managing my own company and having employees. So the problem which I'm facing is, how do I motivate them? So like you must be facing in your company, how do you motivate your employees, your future ambassadors of the company, to learn new things and keep them pushing the limits?
I think that's a lost lecture if we could answer that. But yeah, it's a constant. What we have been trying to do works, partly doesn't work. So I have a theory in life. Take just 2 minutes. I believe that there is a section of the society which has a power to introspect. They can go home, look in themselves in the mirror, ask themselves tough questions. Are they doing the right thing? Do they need to have more skill sets to evolve into the next leg of the job, like Prashanth mentioned, the next leg of the company growth? They're self-motivated guys. Yes, your rebel-rousing speeches may help, may not help, but even after a rebel-rousing speech, 1 hour down the line, 1 hour later, people are still back to where their old selves are. There is another section of the society which has no hunger, no ownership. They don't introspect. You can't motivate them. That's our theory.
We have time for the last question. Liz, go ahead.
Yeah, this may take some time because, okay, so I have come from a town which is like a small town in Punjab state, and like you guys were talking that Mumbai college would try to initiate something, but it couldn't happen. Before I came to Mumbai, or my previous job was in Gurgaon, I never knew about these fintechs. I didn't know their names and how to use a Paytm, Google Pay, or Razorpay, or any of these applications. But I know that if I would have known about these things, I would have definitely tried to, opt for any of the jobs in any of these fintechs. You guys today are known, figures of the world. How do you think that this knowledge, which is prevailing in Delhi NCR or in Mumbai, can be transferred to the colleges, which are not in tier 1 cities? Because if I know the students that I have studied with, all of them, they are doing something or the other back there in Punjab, maybe working in a bank or something. But it's not that they lack encourage, they lack the power to grow and all that stuff. So what is your take? How does this knowledge of fintechs and how do these fintechs operate should reach to these things, these towns and all?
We live in a capitalistic world here. So I think the only way we're going to be successful in taking fintech to every nook and corner of the country is on the backs of the success that we see in fintech, right? So when you look at companies like Paytm, when you look at companies like BillDesk, when you look at First Data, these companies have actually built large franchises, large brands, and they have employed large number of people, which is now going to all the nook and corners of the country. In your Punjab, wherever you've come from, they surely know Swiggy and Zomato. The reason they know Swiggy and Zomato is because Swiggy and Zomato has done exactly that.
Yes, they do.
They build strong, large businesses which are going and impacting everybody's lives. That's when PaySense and Zest actually is available in a small city of Punjab. That's the time when those people are going to get encouraged to come and work for a Zest or PaySense. So I think the best that we can do from a capitalistic mindset is grow our businesses bigger, make our businesses successful, take it into small pockets of the country, and automatically that wave will go and start hitting the students that this is the place that I want to go and work.
Right. So with this, we would like to conclude this panel. Thanks everyone for your time, and thanks panel as well.